Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Emma Wainer. She is an executive voice coach and she helps professionals look, sound, and feel like the expert they really are. Welcome to the show, Emma.
Welcome. Thank you. Welcome. I'm welcoming you. Thank you so much, AJ. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, it is nice. It is nice to be welcome. We are both the same. You are the master. I am the host. But the mission is the same to bring out as much value to the audience that is possible. And you are bringing a lot of value as a voice coach to many people. So, so to understand from you, that's my first question. To understand from you, Emma, is help us a bit more about voice coaching and how exactly you are doing what you are doing.
Yeah, of course. So there are many people out there who are absolutely brilliant at what they do. They're really good. They're experts in their field. They're amazing. They produce incredible results either for their organization or for their end users, their clients, if they've got their own business. But they don't necessarily show up and they don't talk about themselves, or they don't talk about the transformations they offer people, or they don't share their brilliant ideas with the rest of their organization or with their clients because it feels a little bit big-headed, or they're worried about taking up too much space, or they don't like the sound of their voice. And so they keep all these brilliant ideas and this impact that they could have quiet. They don't share it with the rest of the world. So I'm sure we've seen people out there who are incredibly good at speaking, but not necessarily brilliant at their jobs. And there's other people who are absolutely brilliant and have so much to share, but they don't really enjoy speaking up. So I'm the person that allows people who have these brilliant ideas, who can make incredible impact. I help them find their voice. I help them use their voices so they're really speaking with executive presence so that they make the impact that they really want to in the world.
Okay. Is it something like voice coaching, or is it about, bringing out the finer points of what they want to speak, and then you actually train them or guide them to actually focus on those talking points? How does that work?
It's both. It's always both. So everything we think about ourselves will leak out of our bodies somehow or another. So if we're standing in front of, say we have to go and do a pitch, we're presenting our idea to somebody senior, or this is the client we really want to win, and we're presenting to them, and we get this sort of little voice in our head going, they're never going to say yes because you haven't spent long enough organizing your presentation, or why would they ask you when they've got all these other big people they could go to? We have that little voice, that inner critic that pops up. What happens to us when that inner critic pops up is it creates loads of noise in our brain, and then our bodies, our voices, and the words that we choose to use become less powerful. And so we're not really showing up as ourselves. We're not really showing up and backing ourselves and our idea. So my work is beginning on the inside. It's kind of clearing out all that clutter, clearing out all those negative thoughts that we might have about ourselves. I haven't been doing this for long enough, or I'm really young, why would they choose me? Or I'm too old to be in this particular marketplace, whatever it might be. We clear out all of that clutter, and then we start to think about, okay, what's my body doing? What does my voice sound like? How can I use my voice to sound more powerful? What are the best words I can choose that are really going to influence this particular group of people? So it's very much both. It's like the interior work, because if we don't clear out all that rubbish, all that clutter, we are never going to be able to really embody the brilliant executive presence speaking skills that we need to, especially when things get stressful or high stakes. So I'm inside and outside. So very much both.
Right, Emma. You have got voice coach training from the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama.
Yeah.
When you bring out your speech coaching in the real world for leaders or whoever it is, then how do you cut out the drama in that real part, and where actually it works and it sounds creditable? How does that work?
So my degree from Central is I have a master's in voice coaching and training. So whilst I was in a drama school, I'm not a drama coach or any of those kinds of things. So I never ask my clients to be trees or melting ice cubes. We're very much focusing on the body bit. So how am I breathing? Because if you think about it, if you walk into a room and you're anxious, your breath is likely to be very high. So it's up in your chest. Now, your audience are very skilled at unconsciously reading your body language. And so they see this anxious breathing, and then they pick up on it and they start to feel a bit agitated and they don't really know why. So my job is to then teach people how to notice that going on in their body and to get the breath much lower in the body. So they're diaphragmatically breathing, so much lower. We call it belly breathing, but you don't really breathe through your belly, but it's much lower. You can't be fearful and breathe deeply at the same time. It's not possible.
Absolutely.
Biologically, the two things cannot exist in your body. So that the calmer your breathing is, the calmer you'll feel, the more easy it will be for you to find your words, to notice what is going on in the audience, slow down, speed up, emphasize this particular point because you're aware and you're present. So my job is very much about helping people understand notice what's going on in their body, and then use the best method for breathing, for speaking, for influencing that is possible. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. So how do you work with these leaders or whoever it is on the ground? Is it your continuous presence is required? Is it assignment to assignment based? How does that work? And is this whatever you teach them? Does this have a you can say longevity to it, or is it only one project is over and they are back to their old voice, or do they learn it for their lifetime? How does that work?
Well, the intention is always it's lifetime learning, always, 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 because we want people to be able to go away from all of our programs and be able to coach themselves, to be able to notice what's going on in their body, go, oh, that was interesting. I did this time. I wonder why. Right, next time I'm going to do X. So that we're kind of helping them become scientists, really, and being able to analyze what's going on in their own bodies and do something differently next time without the judgment piece going on. So we are always lifetime learners, but there's always a new devil at every level, right? So every time we go up a level, something new will happen. Suddenly we've got an audience of 1,000 people and it's live, so I can't go back. And, you know, that will create some different anxiety. So we are always working. The way that we do it is that we, like I say, we start on that inside piece. So if we clear out that clutter, then we can begin to, with assignments, with exercises. So some of the things are like on paper, some of the things are actually doing breathing exercises. Sometimes it's about taking a piece of work that you have, bringing that and saying, okay, how do I make this more influential? And so it's a real mixture of what I would call cognitive, so brain work and body work, and then applying that to the real world, and then coming back and saying, well, that worked brilliantly. Okay, why? What were you thinking? What did you do? What was the impact? Or coming back and going, that was terrible, it didn't work. Okay, what were you thinking? What did you do? What was the reaction? And so we can kind of analyze it. So we take quite a scientific approach to the impact of what we do.
Right, right. You focus also on a lot of, on women to help them raise their visibility and credibility at work. How does that work with women leaders? Is it different or is it the same? Do they have to work extra hard? And how do you bring more credibility through voice? You said, helping professionals look, sound, and feel like the expert they really are. I want to understand the gap so that, a lot of people who may not be able to directly interact with you, they can understand exactly, who they are, the expert that they are. But when it comes down to delivering or talking about their expertise, there is that big gap that needs to be filled, which an expert like you are doing. I want to understand that from you, especially also in terms of women leaders, so that, whoever listens to it may try and learn a bit from this video itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with women, it's really interesting. I do have male clients and they're absolutely lovely. But mainly I do work with women. There's a big difference between knowing that you're an expert. So cognitively in your brain, understanding I'm really good at what I do. I'm an expert in my field. And then feeling it, like knowing it, like really in your heart going, yes, I'm an expert. So could you sit in a room of your peers and go, I'm an expert on this bit of my area of expertise? Most women find that really difficult. They find that taking up of space really, really challenging. And so I'll often have clients who'll say, well, I've only been doing this for 2 years. I'm not really experienced enough. I'm too young, I'm too old, there's a real enoughness piece, or I haven't really had enough exposure to X amount of clients or this kind of stakeholder. So there's always this lack piece that's going on mentally with women. Now, as I said at the beginning, if we have any little bit of our brain that's going, not enough, you still don't know enough, you haven't prepared enough, you're not old enough, all of that stuff, it's going to play out. So for women, it's about the work that I do is realigning the knowledge with the belief that they're an expert. Because as soon as we do that, then there's a big shifts in the body. There's big shifts in breathing. There's big shifts in the kind of risks that they're likely to take. And when I say risks, I mean, just outside your comfort zone. I'm not talking about major risk, but they'll do things that they didn't think they were capable of before. So it's very much about that. Men don't, this is a little bit of a generalization, but most of the men that I work with don't come for that reason. It's not that they don't believe that they're an expert. It's just that they want to have more impact. So there is a definite difference between the way women feel about taking up space and being an expert and the way men feel about it. Women are very concerned about taking up too much space and that having an impact on other people. Whereas men don't tend to, the clients I have certainly don't tend to feel the same. They want to just do more, make more impact.
Right. Is it about, you talk about leadership presence. Is it that, that leadership presence is, how do you define leadership presence as? Is it about personality? Some leaders are, even if they are not very top leaders, but their presence is very much, there, you can feel it. Some leaders are, they speak through their expertise. They will take only a corner of the room, but you will know that the person does not throw his weight in public, but the person is there. How do you then tell women which type of person you want to be? Should you be throwing your weight all around without having that real, expertise, or should you be, doing both? I want to understand what is the best ground, middle ground, left ground, right ground, whatever is the best way to, make your presence felt, the leadership presence.
It's all about authenticity. For us, every time it's about authenticity. So if you have a personality that is very exuberant and you like to laugh and you take up space naturally, then that's what we're going to leverage, because that's one of your key skills. If you're a much quieter leader, if you're much more introverted on the introvert extrovert scale, then if we said to you, right, you've got to try and take up loads of space, you'd be like, well, no, thank you, I'm not doing it. And it would come across as inauthentic. So it's really about leveraging what is it that you are already brilliant at. So you might be an incredible expert, like a scientific expert. Okay, let's leverage your science, but let's make it accessible to everybody in the room. You may be somebody who likes to have a laugh. Let's leverage your kind of personality, but let's make sure that you also know how to shift gear and bring in that sense of seriousness or that sense of gravitas. So for me, executive presence or leadership presence is really about balancing three things. It's about balancing gravitas, so that ability to be serious, be sensible, kind of take up space, let the audience know that you've got this, it's okay, you're in safe hands. Levity, so taking the work seriously, but yourself lightly. Having grace under pressure, that's the third thing. So you've got gravitas, levity, and grace under pressure. Those are the three things that kind of make executive presence exist. And they're all underpinned so that if you imagine they're sort of sitting on a seesaw, they're balancing on high quality communication. If you can't communicate really effectively, whether things are going calmly, whether in crisis, whether it's one person or 1,000 people, if you can't communicate and do it in an agile way, it doesn't matter how brilliant you are at your job, because it's going to fall flat. So for me, that's what leadership presence is about. It's about this balance between gravitas, levity, grace under fire, and doing it all with incredible communication style, so that you're demonstrating to the audience who you're being as much as what you're doing. Who you're being is vital. In fact, I would say more important than what you're doing. The doing piece can always be changed, and most organizations is agile, but who are you being? That's what they want to know.
Right. So Emma, it must be a lot of difficult work for you to, suit your, say, understanding of different type of work, their expectations, and then suggest them something. Every time it is a different person and their style is different. You need to grasp things very quickly, and then customize it according to their style.
Yeah.
Generally, in such sort of assignments, what is the expectation of these people who are already expert about in their area of whatever they are doing?
Yeah. For me, it's always turning it back to them. So my first question, I've worked with lots of people who I speak, working with a lady the last week, right? She had to go and deliver a speech next to the president of the World Bank, who is an amazing speaker, very charismatic. And she's like, how do I do this? And it's like, for me, it's always turning it back to them. What is your intent? What do you want the audience to go away thinking, feeling, and doing after this? And so once they've defined what their intention is, what they would like the audience to be thinking, feeling, and doing, then that makes my job really easy. It's like, okay, so how do we achieve this given what you know? And then it's such an easy job to kind of filter everything out. It's like, does that get us to your intention? No, we don't need that in the speech. Let's get rid of it. Does that help? Does that get you to where you want to go with the audience? No, let's find another story. So it's really easy to filter it down, because I'm always working towards what does this client need to achieve with their audience? What does their end user really need? So it's not, whilst there are like a gazillion choices at every point, we filter them so quickly because we're really focused on what's the North Star for this end user, this end listener. What do we want them to be thinking, feeling, and doing? And then it becomes really, really easy because I know my clients. So it's like, well, okay, let's leverage this bit of you. You're an amazing storyteller, right? What stories have you got around this? Let's really lean into that. We don't have much time, right? Let's really lean into your ability for clarity. What are the 3 things they absolutely need to know? So it's really easy once we've got that intention clear in our minds. If we don't have the intention, we're wandering around in the dark without a map. So it's the intention, always starting with that. That really helps us.
Right. How do you teach them to maintain their authenticity by at the same time remembering to keep their voice into proper voice modulation, pointers, and all these things? Because if you ask me, it is a very difficult job to do, and you have to ensure that it is done that way. How do they do it when they come to doing this particular thing?
Well, a lot of it is that first piece of work I was talking about, clearing out the clutter. Because once you clear out the clutter, the mindset stuff, the inner critic stuff, the imposter syndrome stuff, right? We never get rid of it, but we can absolutely get it under control. Once we've got that under control, what you find is voice modulation actually naturally comes in. It's like the way that we communicate authentically with other people is buoyant, right? It's naturally buoyant. It always comes to the surface. But the imposter syndrome and the inner critic squash it down, and they make it strangled. So a lot of women will come to me using a voice like this. So this is what I would describe as a disembodied voice. So I don't know if you can feel the sensation that this voice is coming out of my head. I don't know any less than I knew 30 seconds ago, but I sound like it. So if I now relax and I let my body relax, and my voice now sounds like it's coming out of my body. So now, particularly to your podcast listeners who can't see me, my voice is probably going to sound pretty different, and I sound much more like the expert I am. So really, it's not about layering over voice to do. It's about getting rid of the rubbish that's in the way that lets that natural buoyancy, that natural ability, that natural authenticity, that ability to connect to an audience just happen. So yes, we do need to practice things like pausing and emphasis and how we work with tone of voice and gesture. But those are tweaks. They're like little finesses rather than, right, go over here, stand here, move your arm like that. That's not natural speaking. That's not what we do. I know that exists out there, but that isn't what we're about. We're about taking somebody, clearing out the clutter, and just making them 10% shinier. That's all it needs. And then they'll connect with that audience really, really quickly and authentically.
Absolutely. There is a lot of important work you do, and you have traversed quite a good amount of, from starting in pharmaceutical sales to, to being a voice coach, executive voice coach. Wonderful. So a lot of people who would like to understand more about these things, what is the best way for them to learn? And those who want to, connect with you for speaking at work, then what is the best way to get your services there?
Okay, well, the best way to learn more is definitely to follow me on LinkedIn. So every day I post information about speaking, about executive presence, about leadership, difficult conversations, anything that's to do with communication that can feel really stretchy. So there's lots of really amazing information there. And also on YouTube. So twice a week we put videos out. Again, they're really how-to. They're very practical even. Can't speak. Very practical. So they're really helping people to be able to handle that conversation, to be able to go and ask their boss for a pay rise, to really show up well in an interview, to really understand what executive presence is. So there's loads and loads of resources there. And there's absolutely loads of books out there I could recommend to read. But the best thing to do is do it. So we only get better at speaking if we actually get out there and do it. So next time you're in a meeting and you're like, oh, I want to say that, and you don't do it, just say it. It doesn't matter if it's not perfectly formed. It doesn't matter if it's not the best idea in the world. It could be the launch pad for somebody else's brilliant idea. So just do it. Whatever you're holding yourself back from, give it a go. See what happens and be non-judgmental about the outcome. If you can. I know that's a big ask for many, many people. But if you can be non-judgmental, amazing.
Amazing. On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.